Anyway, so my dad's donkey punching a flaming trailer, just trying to fucking... I wasn't... Some recent shit happened in like real life that I'm going to tell you guys about, and these like aren't really jokes yet. This is just some traumatic shit that happened to my family recently, all right? So on Monday, on 9/11, my parents' house caught fire. Yeah, they were able to put the fire out, but between the fire and like the water damage, it's basically a full loss, right? My parents live in a mobile home on 8 acres in the middle of nowhere. Do you understand? Like, my parents live in howdy-doody country. So when they first realized there was a fire and called the fire department, on the fire report, there was a 5-minute delay between calling dispatch and dispatch contacting a fire department because they had to figure out which fire department to send to my parents' section of the fucking boonies. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't know which county to call. Because they're like, well, it's just in the middle of nowhere. So fucking, who wants dibs? You know what I mean?
Didn't it take like an hour for them to get there?
It took almost an hour. Yeah, somebody follows me on social media. Fuck yeah. It took almost an hour for the fire department to actually get out to my parents. So it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. My dad had already gotten home from work. He had shoes and socks off. Like, he's comfortable. And my dad has the kind of feet where once the shoes and socks come off, they don't go back on, right? Because of the swelling. My dad's feet are fucked up. You know, like, my dad has feet that look like somebody like boiled alligator feet and then like degloved them. Like, my dad legit has had to cut his toenails with an angle grinder before. Like, his big toenails are the kind, have the level of thickness to them that you like, there might be one of those like Jurassic Park mosquitoes and amber in one of those motherfuckers. But he had just gotten comfortable. My mom was like, had just like put like, she was doing, I think, a pot roast. She'd put dinner in the oven. She was in her room watching television, just relaxing. And then all of a sudden, my dad's like, something is on fire, right? And he looks into the kitchen, and there's smoke billowing into the kitchen, right? According to the fire department, it's either the light or the fan on their back porch started an electrical fire. It burned into like the wall and the ceiling of the house, and then got into the attic and all of the attic insulation in a mobile home, and just whoosh, like started a fire through the entire ceiling. So my dad sees the smoke and he's like, honey, something's on fire. Except my mom was in her room having her little ADHD time, binge watching Chicago Fire. And so she literally yells back at my dad, it's like, no, honey, it's on TV. And he's like, no, honey, it's in the kitchen. So my dad gets my mom out of the house, goes back, gets all the animals out of the house, runs back in one more time to the gun safe to get out all the guns and ammunition. Because the last thing you want is all the ammunition to heat up and just start fucking firing off at all the like fucking first responders. So he gets everything out of the house, and then my 61-year-old, like 4 months after heart surgery dad starts fighting this fire Papal style. You understand? He's running around the yard. Yeah, running around the yard in the boonies, barefoot, with his sensitive ass fucking crocodile feet, dude. Like, and they live out in the boonies where like the only thing on the ground are sticks, rocks, and sand spurs kind of shit. So he's like, ow, 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 to the hoses. They have garden hoses on both sides of the house. So he grabs the first hose and a ladder and just goes over to the house where the wall and the roof is engulfed in flames, puts the ladder right in the fire and just climbs up on it, just starts trying to put it out in front of him. And then my fucking retard strength ass dad's solution is, hey, inside the roof and ceiling is on fire, so I just gotta punch a hole in this flaming wall like fucking Daniel in that fucking karate tournament, just fucking with the bricks on fire. Dad's just on the ladder trying to punch a hole in the wall with a water hose wrapped around his hand like fucking brass knuckles. And then, because my parents, they retired from doing foster care, but they still take in strays. So my brother-in-law's best friend, Nick, lives in like a shed tiny house right behind like my parents' house. So he realizes the house is on fire. He runs out. He grabs the other hose because my fucking dad's just standing in the fire trying to fight it, trying to keep the house from going up in flames. And then now Nick is spraying my dad with the water hose, trying to keep my dad from going up in flames. And my dad, he doesn't drink anymore. My dad hasn't drank, like, my entire life. He's had, like, 5 beers, and every one of those beers has been immediately after he's, like, come home from the VA hospital and been like, well, I have a kidney stone. Because that's how he deals with kidney stones. He's like, I'm going to drink this beer and then piss this blood real quick. And I only tell you that to tell you that my dad is built retard tough. Do you understand? Like, he doesn't understand pain. So he doesn't understand that he was just in a fire and he doesn't have any, like, hair left on his arms. And Nick is spraying him with a water hose and he's just getting pissed off about it. Not realizing that the guy's saving his life. He's just like, will you stop? And he's like, no. And he's like, fuck you. It was like that fucking, what was that TikTok? Like, what's your name? Zeke? Fuck you, Zeke. It was literally that, but with water hoses in a flaming trailer. Which sounds like the name of, like, a Christian book. Do you know what I mean? 2 water hoses and a flaming trailer. One family story of perseverance and the road to Christ. You know, like one of those kinds of shits. Anyway, so my dad's donkey punching a flaming trailer, just trying to fucking... while standing on a ladder and like haymaker, so it's rocking back and forth. Nick sprayed with a water hose. My mom is like standing in the yard holding chihuahuas and screaming. It's a real Three Stooges scenario going on. But the fire department finally gets there. A police officer gets there first, and he's like, you know, you can stop, like, the fire department will be here. And my dad's like, hey, are you going to fucking get up here and do it? Then I'm going to keep going. And my dad doesn't give a shit. Like, he doesn't respect authority because he doesn't respect anyone he can knock out. And like the quiet confidence of like a chimpanzee at the zoo. You know what I mean? I'll sit right here and calmly eat this banana, but the second that you raise your voice at me, I'm gonna fuck you up. In fact, give me that banana. Anyway. I don't know how familiar you all are with mobile homes, but mobile homes are pretty fucking famous for burning the fuck down, right? And with my parents being as far out in the middle of nowhere as they live, and the response time being as long as it was, when the fire department actually got out there and finished helping getting the fire put out, they literally were like, we've never seen one of these still standing after this long. And then my mom started telling him about my fucking dad just fucking Brock Lesnaring the roof of the house and just fucking, you know, and so that I don't know, that's who my dad is. You know what I mean? He's just like that. And my parents, like, this entire time, ever since that incident, like, the fire department basically told him, he's like, we can't like call it a full loss, but your insurance is going to tell you it's a full loss because it's a mobile home that is now filled with water that has a giant hole in it. Like, literally the day after, when the inspector finally let my parents go back into their house to collect some clothes and stuff from closets that weren't touched, it started raining in the kitchen. That's what we said was, yeah. But that's what the fire inspector was like, yeah, there's no saving this because, like, the longer it's sitting here like this, like, it's just going to get worse and so on and so forth. And I don't know, my parents have just been in, like, good spirits about it because they're the kind of people that, like, when we were growing up, when I was 17 years old, I was a senior in high school. The Thanksgiving before I graduated, we had a call in the middle of the school day. Growing up, my parents, they built. I was like a toddler at the time. They bought 10 acres, put a mobile home on it, and then built like a concrete block house, right? And then when I was like 13, 14, my mom's brother got remarried to my mom's best friend, and then they bought like 7 acres adjacent to us. So we literally had like our own private road to my aunt and uncle's house. Well, when I was, like I said, that Thanksgiving, right before I graduated high school, we got a call in the middle of the school day that my uncle had been hit head on by a dump truck on his way home from work at the prison that he worked at. And he ended up surviving the accident, but had severe like physical and mental disabilities moving forward. And so my mom quit her job at the time, shut down her business, and basically moved into my aunt and uncle's house to take care of him full time as like a caregiver. And my dad was working to pay the mortgage for both houses. And it reached a point where they couldn't keep both houses. So my parents gave up their house so my aunt and uncle could keep their house. Right. So my parents gave up my childhood home that they built with their bare hands. So I was trying to figure out like how my parents could be in such like a good mood after like a devastating house fire. And then my parents literally sat me and my sister down and it's like, look, we don't care because we already lost the house that we cared about. Right. And that was fucking devastating to hear, right? And so there's always been this thing, like my parents have never said it out loud, but I knew how much it meant, like that house meant to them, and I knew like what they felt when they lost it, right? And so ever since I started comedy, like ever since somebody first told me that I could do this for a living and I could be good at it, like my goal has always been to get good enough at comedy that I could buy my parents that house back. Because it's our fucking house. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of been my goal ever since I started comedy, was to break that generational curse and like get my parents' house back and like recover that family home. And now somehow I'm so far in the hole that now I owe them 2 fucking houses. So here's the deal, you guys. I realize that probably wasn't as funny as some of you were expecting, but they lit me a fucking while ago, dude. We've been out of time. So I hope you all had a good fucking time tonight. Are you not entertained? If you enjoyed the show so much that you're like, I want to do something in support, go on my Instagram, Faylea Wilkerson Comedy. Click the links in my bio. There's a GoFundMe for my parents. It's on my Facebook as well. Fucking. That's the real MVP. What's your name?
Debbie.
Debbie. Give it up one more time for Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Thank all of you for coming. Thank you for having a good time. Thank you for letting me get some of that shit off my chest. Get home safe. I love you so much, Portland.